Now, my next guest is among the growing number of South Africans who contracted COVID-19. Journalist and media entrepreneur Mpho Lakaje found himself fighting for his life after being infected with that virus. And you would also have seen him a number of times on Newzroom Afrika with those long format stories. Mpho, good evening to you. Great to see that you've been able to recover. Now, you've penned a piece just talking about the experience that you had while battling this COVID-19. As a journalist, naturally, you're well informed about the virus. You have an idea of what to expect based on other people's stories. How much of that changed when you were now the one going through the experience?
Good evening, Kathy. Let me start by saying welcome back. I am fully aware that you've also had your own episode with COVID-19. Now, let me start by saying this. Let me take you back to the second week of June. I remember I was full of energy. I was extremely excited. I was putting together June 16 related stories for different media houses. So I was out there interviewing people. And when the 16th of June arrived, of course, I watched my stories on television. I was happy. But then the following day, I spoke to a friend of mine. I remember I was on a call with Ashley Market. And all of a sudden, I started to feel very strange, and I cut the call short. I said to him, listen, I can't do this. I need to sleep. But you see, it was a very strange feeling. It's something that I had never felt before. So I immediately went to bed with the hope that the following day I would wake up feeling better. But I have to tell you, Kathy, I woke up with the mother of all headaches. I had chills, I had body aches, and I started coughing. So at the time, I thought maybe my body was trying to tell me something. It was giving me feedback because I had been working extremely hard. So I slept, thinking that maybe I will feel better by resting. The symptoms only intensified. Then I started to get others. I lost my sense of smell. I lost my sense of taste. I lost appetite. I remember my wife would force me to eat, and then at that stage she said, maybe we should test your oxygen levels. Fortunately, we have an oximeter here at home, so we checked my levels. Obviously, under normal circumstances, Kathy, the levels would be about 95, 96 up to 98 out of 100. Now I'm talking about under normal circumstances when I'm healthy. But then I remember at the time, my oxygen levels had plummeted to 80 something. And she said to me, this appears to be COVID-19. And of course, we went on to find out that it was indeed COVID-19. And then I started to experience other symptoms. I battled to breathe. I think that's something that really, really bothered me, the fact that I couldn't breathe. And when things like that happen, Kathy, the mind starts turning on itself. You can imagine. I started to think to myself, is this the end of the road? My children are very small. I have 3 small children. What's going to happen to them? Should I die? What's going to happen to my wife? What's going to happen to all the people who rely on me, people who depend on me? What's going to happen to my business? So, yeah, that's what happened, Kathy. It was a long and excruciating journey. But to answer your question, it really, the whole experience really changed my understanding of what COVID-19 is. I would have thought that, being a 41-year-old non-smoker, someone who works out almost daily, I try my best to look after myself. I thought my body would take it well if I happened to test positive. But that was not the case. I was really gravely ill.
Mpho, I want to touch on one of the things that you've mentioned, and that's really the mental fight that one goes through when you're recovering from COVID-19. And, I had conversations with friends that had also contracted COVID-19. Everybody talks about the mental challenge. What did you do in order to overcome the fear, the anxiety, and some of the negative thoughts that very easily can overwhelm one's mind?
You see, Kathy, the thing about the mind is that once you deal with something like this, it gives you the worst case scenarios. What's going to happen tomorrow? if I sleep tonight, will I wake up the following day? That is why whenever I talk to people about my story, I always say, as much as you have to quarantine, it's also important that you stay in touch with family and friends. And I was fortunate in that regard because I have a lovely wife who really went out of her way to make sure that I deal with this thing with her support. But I also had, I received calls, messages from family from here in South Africa and from around the world. I received calls from colleagues, and I think that became extremely important. Mm-hmm. But you see, in my case, and I consider myself lucky, Kathy. In my case, I was lucky in the sense that my wife was out there searching for an oxygen concentrator because, as I said, I was battling to breathe. So she was out there looking to purchase an oxygen machine. But then, because she's a business operator, she was with one of her suppliers, and she overheard this supplier. I mean, how's that for luck? She overheard this supplier talking about oxygen concentrators. And she went up to him and said, hang on, I'm looking for this particular machine. And this gentleman said, no, we don't sell these machines. We actually give them to Covid-19 patients for free. We don't charge. As soon as you've recovered, you give these machines back. So then we discovered that this gentleman belonged to an organization called Gozi Azam Welfare Foundation. So my wife spoke to these people, and indeed, they said to her, it's fine, come and get one. She received an oxygen concentrator. She brought it home. I remember she was extremely excited and relieved. But then something happened. The machine actually made me extremely sick. The first day, I mean, I remember in the early hours of the morning, I was coughing uncontrollably. I think my body simply wasn't ready to take in that amount of oxygen. So it made me sick, but in about a day or two, I started adjusting, and it became a game changer.
You know, just a story of this organization and that intervention of this oxygen and how it changed your trajectory of recovery is one of the things that points you to solidarity and why solidarity is so important in this moment.
Absolutely. Look, Kathy, I am convinced, especially having gone through this experience, this terrifying experience, I am convinced that we will only defeat this virus as a nation or as the world if we truly commit to solidarity, social solidarity. Because had it not been for this amazing and selfless organization, I don't think I'd be sitting here. But then, you see, then what subsequently happened was that my wife continued to force me to eat because I was also taking things like ivermectin, and I have to be very specific, Kathy. I was taking ivermectin that was prescribed by a professional doctor. Because I've seen that a lot of people also tend to take ivermectin for animals. And I've heard all sorts of stories, but this is something that medical professionals discourage. You have to, if you are going to take ivermectin, it has to be ivermectin that has been given to you by a professional. So I took ivermectin as well as other things like vitamin supplements, zinc, but also I insisted on spending at least 30 minutes outside. But that in itself was quite a challenge because walking was extremely tiring, Mm-hmm. But those things made a difference. I remember this organization came to my house along with a nurse because they had to do another test. And this time I tested negative, which was important because my GP had made it clear that I couldn't see him without confirmation that the virus is out of my body. And you see, I needed to see my GP because I had, although many of the symptoms were starting to disappear, I had piercing chest pains. So that was worrying me a lot, Kathy. Mm. So when I tested negative, I went out, I saw my GP, and the first thing that he did was to check my heart. We did an ECG test, and he was happy with that. Then we were trying to get to the bottom of the chest pains. So we did an X-ray test. You know, I remember the lady who did the test looked at the results, and I asked her. I said to her, "What are you seeing? What's going on?" She couldn't break it to me. She said to me, "All I can tell you, Mpho, is that a lot of people are sick. A lot of people are not well." I mean, she simply couldn't say to me, "Your lungs are messed up. Your lungs are not okay." So she gave the results to the doctor, and the doctor looked at the X-ray results, and he said to me, "Listen, I can see where the virus had been seated. It really caused damage. But the good news is that I will give you antibiotics, and I have no doubt that you are going to be okay." And I think, Kathy, that also psychologically was a boost. About 3-4 days later, the stabbing chest pains had left. My appetite was fully back, but I was now dealing with the second phase, which is what they call post-COVID symptoms.
Mpho, we're having this conversation at a time where the analysis of the numbers in this country show that we have a lot less men going to get vaccinated for COVID-19. After having had the experience that you have, what would you say to those people that are reluctant to go and get vaccinated, those people that believe that COVID-19 is just something that has been invented, that it's not real?
You know, I've heard people saying this is nothing but a bad flu. That's not the case. I can tell you, Kathy, you know, that is so not true. I would like to believe that I'm a very healthy person. As I said, I look after myself. I work out. I drink plenty of water. You know, here at home, my family call me the vegetable police because I strongly believe in a diet that comprises vegetables. So I really try my best to look after my body. But when the virus entered my system, really, I couldn't cope. You know, so that really tells you that this is real. This is no child's play. Please don't take it for granted. Look after yourself. Do those things. I know we are all exhausted. I know we would like to be out there. You know, please, if you can, please go out there, vaccinate. I mean, these things are available, you know. Take that vaccine. It will save your life. But most importantly, look after yourself. Look after your family members. Continue to wash your hands. Continue to use, do whatever it takes, Kathy, to look after yourself. Really.
And you know, Mpho, we continue to live with the impact of COVID-19 daily. Just today, you know, the journalism industry has lost Ragini Archery, who's somebody that we've both worked with in our careers. And, you know, she leaves a husband and young children. And so it's far from over. We're still very much in the grips of this pandemic. There was journalist Mpho Lakaje. Thank you so much for coming on, Mpho, and sharing your story.